Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and Master Certified Life Coach, Susie Rosenstein.
Hey there, today's Encore episode is all about busting through fear about what you really want in midlife. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast Women in the Middle with over 1 million downloads and counting. Actually, I checked today and we just hit 1.8 million downloads. So I was really happy to see that. And I guess 2 million will be the next big milestone. And of course, I'll share that with you. Now, I'm your host, Susie Rosenstein, your Master Certified Coach and Midlife Clarity Expert. And I am so glad to be here with you again. You may have noticed that today's episode is indeed an encore episode. This means I'm republishing an older episode again because it was popular and I know you'll love it. If you're a newer listener, you may not have heard some of these amazing episodes from the back catalog. And if you're a regular listener, you probably know about the value of reconnecting with concepts from older episodes. The other reason for an occasional encore is because of my personal schedule. Sometimes there are special events or vacations that bump up against my podcast schedule, and you know, it's a win-win solution for all. So thank you for understanding that. And I know you're going to love this episode. So that is what's happening today. This episode is about my favorite emotion, and it might be yours too. Drum roll, please. It is fear. Fear. So I'm pretty confident that this is quite relevant to you too. And you're going to get a lot from learning some solid strategies to bust through fear so you can get out of your own way. But just quick, before we dive into that juicy topic, I want to share something exciting with you. I know that in midlife, it is easy to get stuck and confused about your priorities and what the heck you really want to do with your valuable time on this planet. No small thing. Now, you're really not alone when it comes to getting clear about what you want, what your passion is, what you want to make sure you don't have regrets about. You're not alone. So I came up with something to help you. My thinking about this problem actually started out years ago when I hosted my very first mastermind called 50 Unplugged. And it's also part of the Women in the Middle Academy now. And there has been one more transformation that's going to be really exciting for you, I think. I've morphed this all into something that gives you results fast and easy. It's called the Get Unstuck Midlife Clarity Fast and Easy Masterclass. Here's the scoop. Life is too short to waste time feeling stuck in midlife. If you don't do something about your stuck state of affairs, nobody will. Now you can do this. Take this fun online midlife masterclass and get clear about your next chapter priorities without spin, confusion, and overwhelm in less than an hour. You heard me correctly. My amazing woman in the middle, picture this. You snap your fingers and you're crystal clear about what your priorities are in life so that you can take the next best steps forward. You finally feel peaceful and confident because you know how to move forward. You see that you have plenty of time to have more fun and meaning in your life. That's what I'm talking about. You can grab this masterclass and get unstuck about your priorities fast and easy on your own time, in the comfort of your own home, and without being live on screen. Like I said, it really is fast and easy, and it's way easier than you think. If you're listening in real time, the unbelievably affordable introductory pricing is on now. If you're tired of feeling stuck and bored with craving more happiness and excitement in your life because you don't know what you want, run, don't walk. You've got nothing to lose and clarity to gain, my friend. Head over to www.midliferoadmap.com, download Get Unstuck Midlife Clarity Fast and Easy, and get started. Okay, here we go. Let's dive into fear. Please enjoy this popular episode. I have a question for you. Do you feel afraid of what you want in midlife? Now, you might not realize what's really going on, but there's likely evidence everywhere. You probably have a nagging sense that you know that there's more out there for you, but feel confused about how to figure it all out and make it happen. You might need to make a decision, but can't for some reason, like you resist making decisions about what you want more than you probably want to admit. Now, I'm in the business of helping you unstick yourself. Women reach out to me when they're stuck, so I hear this kind of thing all the time. I wouldn't be surprised if you feel stuck and stay stuck way longer than you want to. That's what happened to me. You may also not even know why you're staying stuck. And for sure, it's pretty confusing and really frustrating. But the truth is, you probably know or at least have a hint about what's going on with you in this regard. It is very common. So if you're like most other amazing women, you might like to think you're confused. That's always my go-to. I'm so confused. Staying confused is actually easier than unsticking yourself sometimes, even though it doesn't propel you forward. But it's actually a choice that you might make knowingly or unknowingly. Think about it. When you're confused, it's easy to get comfortable or complacent. You slowly but surely just start to accept that this is the way it is. That's the way you are. It kind of feels like you have no choice. It's like you're at the effect of confusion. You're just stuck with confusion. But staying confused is the status quo. Unconfusing yourself is not. There's more discomfort associated with it because it's something new. It's a change. So change is defined as the act or instance of making or becoming different. Different is the opposite of the same. Do you follow? So in this case, change means moving forward in some way into new beginnings and into things that aren't familiar. Sometimes you might find yourself thinking you're hiding from what you're actually thinking. Has that ever happened to you? And we do this because it's uncomfortable. You don't have all the answers, and you love certainty. We all do. And with new stuff, it's anything but certain. So as you can see, there's lots of this going on, and it's not helping you move forward. The bottom line is you're not moving intentionally in the direction that you want, and that's what we want to do, especially in midlife. And like I said, it's a big problem at our age. That's why this in midlife thing is so important, because we have age sensitivity. We have this sense that time is just flying by. So let's think about this for a minute. Why do you think you would be preventing yourself from creating what you want in your life? Why would you be standing in your own way? Because that's really what you're doing. If you're feeling stuck and confused and fearful, what's going on? And that's really what we're talking about now. Why are you standing on your own way? And the answer is fear. I gave you a little hint just now. Actually, it's also the name of this episode. But it's fear. It's typically the emotion driving all of this kind of drama. Plain and simple. You might be afraid of things that you don't really understand or have clarity about. Like you don't have all the answers, or you can't figure out what to do. It can be scary to get out of your comfort zone. It really can. And the thoughts that create the fear are keeping you stuck. So notice what you're actually thinking about the new stuff that you really, 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 really want to do. Like maybe setting a goal, changing your career, leaving a relationship, starting a relationship, taking on a passion project, making an investment, learning a new skill, going back to school, and so on. There's so many things that you might be wanting to do. And you can do whatever you like. It doesn't matter what's on your list. It doesn't matter the list I just shared. But it's nice to proceed on purpose, to be intentional, to be aware, and to understand and like your reasons for doing or not doing whatever it is. Can you relate to that? Are you thinking about a job situation right now that you would really like to change or aren't because you're fearful? Or maybe you really want to become an entrepreneur but can't find the courage to take the first step? You might not be quaking in your boots, like it may not look like classic fear, but when you're really quiet and honest with yourself, you're likely resistant and afraid. You're holding back, and you might not even know what you're thinking, actually. Like with me, when I was stuck for 5 years between 45 and 50 years old, I was clueless that I was being fueled by fear. Fear was calling the shots. Fear was the reason for my decisions about how I wanted to make my professional contribution and what I was up to trying, how I was going to put myself out there, what changes I was open to making. So either finding a new job or becoming an entrepreneur, whatever it is, this area is a very common one with women in the middle, but really it's anything having to do with a change, a transition, a transformation. With my situation, when I got really quiet with myself, I knew that what I really wanted was to have my own business. So I was taking steps to try to figure out how to become employed by somebody else. But then I couldn't ignore what I really knew that I wanted. I was trying to ignore it. I was really trying. But the thing was, I realized finally that I was way too scared to take that leap of faith. It was fear. And fear is what fueled everything I ended up doing in that phase of my life. The thing is that you can figure out what you're thinking. You might not even know what you're thinking at first, but you can figure it out. Your biggest clue is to just look around at what's going on in your life. Take notice. What do you do? What do you have? What decisions do you make? What do you spend your time on? What do you lean into? Your thinking is creating all of the stuff that you have, the results that you have in your life. You're thinking something that's propelling you in that direction, whatever direction you're taking. You feel a certain way when you think that way, and that leads you to show up, to decide certain things, and to create those results. So what you're thinking now is creating your emotional state. The way that you feel drives what you do or don't do, and that is how you behave, and that is what will actually create what's going on in your life. Now, that is simplified, but that's what's happening. If you weren't fearful, you would do something, and that something is likely different than what you do when you are fearful, right? And you know what happens then. Now, I mentioned this before briefly, but your results, the things that you create for yourself, will perpetuate the way you're thinking. So you end up creating more of what you think. It all ties together. If you think you're not ready to be an entrepreneur, if that's really what you think, and when you think that, it creates fear, guess what? You won't be ready to become an entrepreneur. You won't do that. But if you're open to the idea that you may be ready, you may be more ready than you think you are, you're open to take that first step, your result will be very different because you'll feel differently when you think that way, even though it's just a tweak. It puts you into a different emotional state. So the question again is, do you know what you're thinking? Is it something like, ooh, that's too scary? Or maybe this, that'll never work, right? It seems like you're just being observational. Like you're just stating the way things really are, but it's really your interpretation. And that's why it's so powerful, because you can think all kinds of things, but you are thinking that. That is your go-to. Ooh, that's too scary. Whatever it is that you really, really, really want to do. Or is it something like this? You know what? I'm a little scared, but I actually might be able to do that. Or maybe, you know what? I'm learning to move in that direction one step at a time. I'm learning how to do it. And I've said this on the podcast many, many times, that using those little, they're called like bridge thoughts, those little baby step thoughts, like I'm learning how to do it, or I'm open to the idea that, or I might actually be able to, instead of saying, oh, I'm going to rock that out. Maybe you're not in that mind space, you know what I mean? But you might be able to take a baby step. Think some kind of a thought that moves you just a little bit in that other direction, because it doesn't create fear. So if you're stuck, you're not thinking in those little baby step ways. You're just not. And so it goes. When you're not aware of what you're thinking and how you're thinking, you don't see clearly at all. You just end up doing stuff and deciding stuff, and it may be coming from the wrong place, like the examples I just gave. In this case, the emotion of fear usually isn't helpful. The important thing is to be really aware of what you're doing and how you're feeling. What you're thinking and how you're feeling. Like, notice your feelings. That's it. So even though it doesn't feel like you're doing anything except feeling stuck, it feels like you're just responding to the universe, making you stuck. Like it feels very like you have no control, but it's really not so. You're creating stuck for yourself. It's the same with relationships or self-care or anything else that's creating a midlife transition angst for you. My clients have shared all of it. Relationships that feel stuck, careers that feel stuck, bad habits that feel stuck, self-care that feels stuck, autopilot living that feels stuck, a boring life that feels stuck. Stuck can be about action or lack of action. You can be stuck all over the place. if you know what I mean. And with all of it, you really owe it to yourself to notice what is creating that reality for you again and again. So you see what you have and you have a sense of what you want. So ask yourself, why don't you have the result that you say that you want in midlife? Why aren't you doing what you want to do? Why don't you have those things or that experience or those plans or even those goals? Why isn't it on your radar? Why isn't it part of your life? It's not the bad old days where if you had fear, like serious fear, you needed to protect yourself because you might be worried about being squished by a woolly mammoth or something like that, right? Now, I'm not talking about the type of fear you may feel when you're in physical danger, like life and death panicky fear. It's not like that in this example, but living the way we live today, we have most of our basic needs met. We're not worried about going and getting all of our food for ourselves other than going to the grocery store, It's not the same. We have a life that is not that intense in terms of fear and safety. But living the way we live today, you can probably handle some fear. You can do things and be fearful, but not if you don't even know that you have fear. You have to be aware if fear is part of your life in this regard. When you're making decisions about what it is that you really want to do, you have to become aware of what's going on for you. You want to make sure that you're clear about how you're making decisions. Are those decisions that you're making the ones that you really want to make? And if you don't like your reasons for making decisions, or you're confused about why you're making certain decisions about making changes and transitions and going in different directions, I'd like you to start being suspicious of fear. Fear is probably involved somehow. I was so shocked when I found how fearful I was when I found out. It was not on my radar at all. Honestly, it was a wake-up call for me. So, as an amazing woman in the middle who wants to be more and more intentional about her life, your job now is to look for the thoughts that are creating the fear. What are you thinking to freak yourself out? So ask yourself a few key questions. When do you feel fear? Is this the type of thing that makes you fearful often? Why do you feel fear about the change that you're thinking about? Are you dwelling on worst case scenarios? What are you making it mean? What are you making this change mean that's creating fear? What is the worst case scenario if you did the thing? Is the worst case scenario something you could handle? Is it realistic? Would you regret not doing the thing? What if you felt fear and did the thing? And what would your future self say to you about the way you're thinking about all of it right now? But a year from now, or 5 years from now, what would that older and wiser you have to say about where you're at now and why? Like the reasons you've made the decisions for where you're at now. What would your future self say to you about the way you're thinking about this thing you want to change? Like your future self a year from now or 5 years from now. What would that older and wiser you have to say about where you're at now and what's making you fearful? Like why all of it's so dramatic for you right now? Are you lacking confidence to do what you actually want to do going forward? And why? Are you worried about being too successful or too happy or too content? Are you afraid of judgment or failure? Do you feel like you're wasting valuable time because your thoughts and decisions are really about fear instead of growth? Is growing forward worth a little discomfort? Good questions to get started with. Awareness is a key ingredient to all of this, of course. All of this mindfulness work that we do on the Women in the Middle podcast, you'll notice the theme of how important awareness is. It's a key ingredient. But the bottom line is that it's not enough to want something. So I encourage you to take action. Here are 3 steps to help you move forward out of fear and out of stuckness like this. So step number 1, be more aware. One way to start is to really dial in your awareness of what you're thinking that's creating fear. But you got to be really honest with yourself. Be observant. Be more present. Notice what fear feels like for you and look for your thoughts creating that feeling. Step number 2, increase your perspective. Another great idea is to notice that when you're feeling fear, you're thinking about yourself. What would it be like if you didn't think about yourself? You're not thinking about the effect of the change that you're considering on others or in the world. So think about all of the goodness that you can bring forward if you went ahead and did the thing. I think when you do this, you'll notice that you're not nearly as fearful when you think about it this way. You might not be fearful at all. And step number 3, be curious about how to help yourself, right? How can you take care of yourself better and actually work on your mindset? You can practice thinking in ways that are more useful to you. You can play with thoughts that shift you forward into action by not creating fear. For example, you can try on some new thoughts for size, like ones that start with those phrases we mentioned before, like I'm learning. You could think that you're learning to figure it out, or that you're learning to feel more comfortable with what it is that you really, really, really want to do. Just start that way. Or that you're ready to take one step, or that you trust that one step will lead to the next. Now, these small shifts in thinking will create different feelings that will help to unstick you. You want to get unstuck, and you're going to have to do things like this to help yourself that way. You will slowly but surely start to focus on what you can do instead of what you can't do, which will change everything. So the thing is that this is your life. And if you don't make some sort of a change and take some sort of action, you will likely find yourself in the same position that you're in this time next year. Nothing will change unless you take action. You won't get closer to what it is that you really, really want right now in your life, or what you want going forward. You must take action. It's the kind of thing that you have to do for yourself. You really don't have to keep wasting time feeling stuck and afraid, but you do have to do something different to have a different outcome in your life. You have to decide that you're no longer going to make fear-based decisions, and then you have to stick to that commitment. As a woman in the middle, you've got this. That's a thought that's available too. Okay, that's it for this episode. Now, as you know, this podcast is all about how to love your life again after 50. It's really all about coaching you to be more intentional and to incorporate mindfulness into your life as a regular practice. This is how you put yourself on your agenda. My focus as your midlife coach is to help you get unstuck, clear, and focused on your current values and priorities so you don't have regrets. I can help you create the confidence, courage, and meaning that you're looking for. If you're ready to take a baby step, you're invited to book your momentum call at www.womeninthemiddleacademy.com, and we will chat. One more thing, you're also invited to purchase my new masterclass, Get Unstuck, Midlife Clarity Fast and Easy, where you can get clear about your next chapter priorities without spin, confusion, and overwhelm in less than an hour. Head over to www.midliferoadmap.com. And finally, for show notes and links, head over to www.susierosenstein.com and click the podcast tab and look for episode 368. You'll also see links there for the new show, Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs. Thanks so much for listening. It's time for you to put yourself first, one thought at a time. I'm Susie Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you next week.